On the dead world of New Purgatory, a lost colony's dark secret waits in the shadows. When Dr. Lara Voss and her team land to investigate, they uncover not just the wreckage of a failed settlement, but a terrifying entity, alive, feeding on memories, and clinging to its last hope of survival. But as they unravel its twisted history, they realize that saving the lost colonists may come at a price they're not prepared to pay. Can they sever the bond without unleashing a new terror upon the universe? This hook sets the stage for the eerie and mysterious nature of the planet, the entity, and the choices the team must make, all while creating a sense of impending danger. The story begins on the desolate planet of New Purgatory, which serves as the backdrop for the mystery to unfold. This planet is portrayed as a graveyard of broken dreams, where abandoned colonies lie in ruins. The imagery sets a haunting tone, with cracked domes from deserted settlements scattered across the horizon, and ash-colored dust swirling lazily in the thin atmosphere. The planet feels lifeless, as if the very air itself carries the weight of its failed colonization. When Dr. Lara Voss and her team land, the barren landscape they step onto tells the tale of a once thriving colony now reduced to nothing more than a series of empty structures and forgotten memories. There is a palpable sense of abandonment, empty chairs and tables overturned, personal belongings left scattered, untouched by time but eerily preserved by the planet's inhospitable conditions. The landscape is both surreal and unsettling, amplifying the sense that something went terribly wrong here. The desolation of the environment mirrors the sense of loss and tragedy that hangs over the planet, and as the team begins their investigation, it becomes clear that New Purgatory is not just a dead world, but a place where something inexplicable and sinister may still linger. As the team begins to explore the abandoned colony, the unsettling atmosphere intensifies. Commander Marcus Ryle, who has seen countless failed colonies, immediately senses that something is wrong about New Purgatory. Unlike other colonies that merely succumb to neglect or external disasters, this one feels different. It is unnervingly quiet and feels almost haunted. His comment about the place feeling haunted is met with Dr. Lara Voss's more analytical approach, as she prefers to describe the situation as unexplained. This distinction between the commander's emotional reaction and the scientist's logical perspective reveals their differing approaches to the investigation. Marcus's unease suggests an instinctive understanding that there is something more to this place than meets the eye, something beyond the scientific data that may defy explanation. The tension between the two becomes even more apparent when they approach the central plaza of the colony, which looks as though the colonists left in a rush. Personal belongings are scattered around, preserved in the thin atmosphere, giving the area an eerie quality. This visual of a place seemingly frozen in time adds to the growing sense of unease. The subtle detail of the overturned tables and chairs hints at a sudden evacuation or abandonment, heightening the mystery of what could have caused such a quick departure. This feeling of abandonment is further underscored when Dr. Voss examines a memorial plaque in the plaza, revealing that the colonists who had settled here are all now declared dead or missing. The sudden tremor in the ground and the faint, eerie whispering that follows suggest that these colonists may not have fully left the planet, amplifying the sense that the situation is far more complex than the team initially realized. The haunting feeling in the air becomes more than just a feeling. It begins to manifest in unexplained phenomena, drawing the team deeper into the mystery of New Purgatory. The story's tension escalates as Dr. Lara Voss and her team move deeper into the abandoned colony. When they reach the central memorial in the plaza, a chilling disturbance occurs. As Dr. Voss examines the memorial, reflecting on the lost colonists, the ground trembles slightly, and a cold wind sweeps through the area, carrying a faint, almost imperceptible whisper. This moment is a turning point in the narrative because it marks the first physical manifestation of the unexplained phenomena that will dominate their investigation. The whisper is faint, but its presence is undeniable, making the team realize that something more than just an abandoned colony lies before them. The very air seems to be alive with the echoes of the past, and this unsettling occurrence prompts immediate concern. Marcus, the seasoned commander, is the first to acknowledge the eerie nature of what they are experiencing, admitting that he heard something, though it was too faint to identify. His cautious reaction sets the tone for the rest of the exploration. Dr. Voss, ever the scientist, doesn't immediately jump to conclusions, but her curiosity is piqued. The tension is heightened further when technician Darl Hume, always the skeptic and comic relief of the group, contributes a moment of levity amidst the growing dread. Hume, lugging a heavy case of equipment, mutters about his aversion to creepy missions and ghost planets. His sarcasm is his way of coping with the growing sense of unease, but even his humor cannot mask the foreboding nature of the environment. However, the tension truly reaches its peak when Hume, in an attempt to lighten the mood, drops his case with a loud thud. The noise echoes through the plaza, amplifying the silence and intensifying the already heavy atmosphere. It's as if the noise has disturbed something unseen, a warning to the team that they are not alone. Hume's sarcastic bravado crumbles in the face of this tangible unease, and he urges the team to just set up the equipment and go home. However, Dr. Voss stands firm, determined to uncover what happened to the colonists. Her resolve strengthens the tension in the scene, signaling that they cannot simply walk away without understanding the force that has left the colony in this state. This moment encapsulates the growing sense of dread and mystery, as it's clear that something beyond the natural is at work on New Purgatory. The whispers, the tremors, and the oppressive atmosphere are no longer just environmental factors. They seem to be warnings or cries for help from something or someone that lingers within the colony. The team is now fully aware that they are on the brink of discovering something far more complex and dangerous than they had initially anticipated. The core mystery of the abandoned colony, and what caused the settlers to vanish, is now intertwined with a more urgent and potentially deadly force. The stage is set for the team's deeper exploration into the secrets of New Purgatory. As the investigation deepens, Dr. Lara Voss's team uncovers more unsettling clues. One of the most pivotal moments comes when Dr. Voss enters one of the abandoned buildings near the central plaza, where the temperature suddenly drops and the atmosphere becomes charged with a heavy, eerie presence. The shift in the environment is not just physical but psychological as well, increasing the sense of dread. The air becomes thick and uncomfortable, as if something is pressing in from all sides. At this moment, the team is still trying to make sense of the strange energy signatures they are picking up, but they're unprepared for what happens next. Dr. Voss's scanner suddenly goes blank, and it is in this charged silence that she first sees it. At the far end of the room, a shimmering humanoid figure appears. Its form is ethereal, flickering like static on an old TV screen, and it appears caught between two worlds. The figure is not fully solid. Its body is translucent, and its features are distorted, giving it a ghostly and unnatural presence. The glowing eyes of the figure focus on Dr. Voss, and in that moment, it becomes clear that this isn't just a figment of her imagination or a glitch in the equipment. This entity is real, and it is aware of her presence. Dr. Voss freezes, unable to process what she's seeing. The figure seems to beckon her, but not in a friendly manner. Its very presence exudes a sense of desperation. Then, the entity speaks, and its voice is not singular, but layered, as if multiple voices are overlapping. The words it speaks are chilling. "Help us." The plea is repeated, not just once, but with increasing urgency, echoing in the stillness of the building. This is the first clear indication that the colonists, or at least their remnants, are trapped in some way, unable to leave their spectral form. Marcus, who is outside the building, is the first to react, drawing his weapon instinctively as he hears the strange voice. He calls out to Dr. Voss, his voice filled with concern, trying to make sense of what's happening. The tension here is palpable, as the apparition's appearance breaks the silence and forces the team to confront the fact that they are not dealing with a simple abandoned colony, but a place imbued with a strange, supernatural force. In the midst of the rising panic, Hume, the technician, adds a touch of humor to the situation with his usual sarcasm. However, his lightheartedness masks the growing fear that is taking root in the team. The figure's sudden disappearance only adds to the mystery, leaving behind only the faint hum of static in the air, a reminder that the presence is still there, waiting, lingering just out of sight. This moment is critical because it forces the characters to confront the reality of their situation. Dr. Voss, who has been methodically analyzing the colony's decline, now faces the undeniable truth that something supernatural has occurred here. The apparition is not merely a byproduct of the colony's collapse. It is a sentient being, a remnant of the lost colonists, and it is trying to communicate. This encounter raises more questions than it answers, but it also sets the tone for the rest of the story, establishing that the mysteries of New Purgatory are not just about technology or failure, but about something far more profound and possibly malevolent. As the team regroups, shaken but determined, the figure's plea, "Help us," echoes in their minds. This phrase will haunt them, compelling them to continue their investigation. What is it that they need help with? What happened to the colonists? And most importantly, why does the figure continue to repeat those words, as if it's caught in a loop of eternal suffering? The answers lie deeper within the core of the colony, and the team's next steps will be crucial in uncovering the full extent of the colony's dark secret. As the encounter with the shimmering figure leaves the team unsettled, the lingering questions about the colony's fate grow ever more pressing. Dr. Lara Voss's commitment to uncovering the truth about New Purgatory drives her forward. But there's an undeniable tension in the air. The entire situation feels wrong, as if they are intruding into a place that was never meant to be disturbed. However, Dr. Voss, along with Commander Marcus Ryle and Technician Hume, understand that they must press on, not just for the sake of curiosity, but because their investigation could be the key to preventing a similar disaster from occurring elsewhere. Dr. Voss's firm response to Hume's comment about leaving the planet captures her leadership. She makes it clear that their mission is not simply to observe and then retreat. It is to understand what happened here, why the colony fell, and what caused the strange spectral events that seem to haunt the place. The whispering voices, the unsettling figure, the cryptic warnings all point toward something far more sinister than they could have imagined. This isn't just an investigation into a failed colony. It's the unraveling of a much larger mystery. Despite this, there's resistance from the team, particularly from Hume, whose sarcastic remarks show his discomfort with the situation. Hume, who's more accustomed to technical challenges than dealing with the supernatural, expresses his frustration with the creepy nature of their mission. His earlier muttering about being stuck with strange otherworldly assignments, first asteroid drills, then ghost planets, serves as comic relief, but also underscores the team's discomfort. His apprehension isn't simply about the unknown, it's about the very human fear of confronting something that challenges their understanding of reality. Hume's dry humor, however, masks his underlying fear, as he knows that what they're dealing with on New Purgatory is unlike anything they've encountered before. The tension between doing their job and wanting to escape grows. While Dr. Voss remains resolute, Commander Ryle is less certain, although he maintains his military composure. His skepticism regarding the colony's fall is palpable. He has seen many failed colonies in his time, but the energy in the air, the silence that hangs over New Purgatory, and the unexplained presence they've encountered suggest that there's something more at play here than just infrastructure failure or economic collapse. His reluctance is understandable, given that there's no immediate danger they can see, and yet everything about the situation feels threatening. As the team moves deeper into the investigation, these internal tensions between curiosity, fear, and duty start to build. Dr. Voss tries to keep the group focused, but the question remains, what are they really dealing with? The voices they hear, the mysterious entity, and the energy signatures they're picking up all point to a much larger, possibly catastrophic event. The team doesn't know yet, But this isn't just about understanding the technological collapse of the colony. It's about uncovering what happens when the very fabric of reality, time and memory starts to unravel. The moment in the plaza, where they hear the whispering voices for the first time, is a stark reminder that they are dealing with something alive and aware. The team might not yet understand what's happening, but their initial experience serves as a warning. They are no longer just explorers. They are potential participants in a struggle for survival, with the specter of whatever happened to the colony hanging over them. This uncertainty propels them forward, but it also makes them question whether they should continue at all. The idea of being trapped in a place like this, where reality seems warped and time itself may be distorted, is a terrifying prospect. Despite the fear, the team's primary motivation to continue is clear. Understanding what happened to the colonists is no longer just a scientific investigation. It has become a moral imperative. Dr. Voss and Commander Riley both realize that if they leave without understanding the cause of the disturbance, the cycle could repeat elsewhere, causing untold harm. But with each step, the eerie quiet and the increasingly disturbing phenomena challenge their resolve, leaving them to wonder just how far they are willing to go in pursuit of the truth. In this moment, the story presents an intriguing moral dilemma. The team is caught between the need to uncover the truth and the growing realization that the truth may be more dangerous and incomprehensible than they could ever have expected. As they prepare to delve deeper, the team's fear and reluctance are palpable, setting the stage for the more intense and bizarre discoveries that lie ahead. The unsettling calm of New Purgatory is shattered when Dr. Lara Voss, having ventured into one of the colony's abandoned buildings, encounters a humanoid figure. The air around her grows heavy and charged, and the subtle, eerie sounds intensify as she approaches the epicenter of the disturbance. What was once a faint whisper becomes an undeniable presence, not just in the environment, but in her very mind. The chilling moment marks a turning point in the team's investigation as they realize they are not just dealing with the aftermath of a failed colony, but something far more complex and sinister. When Dr. Voss steps into the building, the scanner she is holding malfunctions. Its screen goes blank as the energy readings spike. At first, she remains unaware of what lies ahead, but as she moves deeper into the room, the temperature drops dramatically, her breath visible in the cold air. Then, from the far end of the room, she sees it. A figure, humanoid but shimmering and distorted. It's as if the entity is trapped between worlds, flickering like static on a broken screen. Its eyes glow faintly, giving it a haunting, ethereal quality. Dr. Voss is frozen in place. For a moment, the figure remains still, its form flickering like a faulty hologram. Then, it speaks in a low, echoing voice, pleading for help. The words, "Help us," reverberate in her mind, intensifying the surreal atmosphere. Her heart races as the implications of this encounter begin to set in. This is no ordinary ghost or malfunctioning technology. This is a conscious, intelligent entity, trapped and in distress. The figure's sudden appearance throws the team into chaos. As Dr. Voss stumbles backward in shock, dropping her scanner, Marcus Ryle bursts into the room with his sidearm drawn. His military training kicks in, but even he is unprepared for the impossibility of what they are witnessing. The figure repeats its words, "Help us," before vanishing as quickly as it appeared, leaving only the hum of static behind. This disappearance adds to the confusion. Was it real? Was it a hallucination induced by the strange energy readings or the deteriorating condition of the colony? Or is it a remnant, a projection of something far older and far darker? In the wake of the encounter, Dr. Voss struggles to make sense of the apparition. She knows it was not a trick of the light or a malfunction of her scanner. The entity's words, its appearance, the way it flickered like a disrupted signal, all point to something far more disturbing than they had initially imagined. This wasn't simply a failed colony with signs of its collapse frozen in time. There was something residual left behind, something that wasn't ready to leave. The colony's inhabitants, or at least a part of them, might still be here, caught in a state of limbo between life and death, trapped in a dimension that the team cannot yet comprehend. The figure's desperate plea, "Help us," suggests that it and others like it are trapped in some form of purgatory, unwilling or unable to move on. This realization forces Dr. Voss and her team to confront the possibility that the collapse of the colony wasn't simply a catastrophic event of infrastructure or resource failure. It was an event that altered the very fabric of reality. The energy in the area, the whispers, and now this entity point toward an irreversible rupture between dimensions, a tear in the natural order that has left the colonists, and possibly the planet itself, suspended in a kind of existential limbo. As the team regroups and continues their investigation, the weight of this encounter becomes clearer. What they are up against is not just a simple mystery of a failed colony, but a manifestation of something far older, far more complex. This entity's desperate cry for help implies a larger, unknown force at work. There is a growing urgency among the team members. They need to understand what happened and what is keeping the colony's inhabitants trapped in this in-between state before it's too late. But as the figure vanishes, leaving nothing but static in its wake, the question remains: what is it that wants their help, and what will happen if they fail to act? The uncertainty of their situation intensifies with each new discovery, and this first encounter with the humanoid figure serves as a chilling reminder of just how much they do not understand about the forces at play on New Purgatory. The team realizes they are not just investigating a site of disaster. They are standing on the precipice of something far more dangerous and enigmatic than they had ever expected. The exploration of the colony leads the team to the reactor building, an area that had been one of the first to fail when the colony collapsed. This reactor, once a critical piece of the colony's infrastructure, is now at the center of an unsettling and terrifying mystery. The initial signs are ominous. The reactor building is surrounded by decaying structures and overgrown pathways, and the very air around it feels heavy and oppressive, as if something unnatural has taken root within it. As Dr. Voss, Commander Ryle, and Technician Hume approach the reactor building, they are struck by the eerie silence. There are no signs of life, only the faint hum of distant winds and the occasional crunch of their boots against the dry, ash-covered ground. The building looms ahead, its exterior cracked and covered with strange black residue that seems to pulse in the light of their flashlights. Upon entering, they are met with an all-encompassing darkness that only deepens the sense of dread that pervades the colony. Inside, the reactor core is revealed, a dormant, looming presence at the center of the room. Unlike a normal reactor, this one exudes an almost sentient quality, with intricate patterns glowing faintly across its surface. These patterns appear irregular, as though they are not simply a product of malfunction, but rather a manifestation of something organic and alive. The readings from Dr. Voss's scanner are off the charts, revealing strange energy spikes that she cannot immediately explain. The patterns on the core's surface seem to shift and evolve, glowing brighter as the air around them grows increasingly charged. Technician Hume, ever the skeptic, is the first to comment on the strangeness of the reactor's behavior. He remarks that reactors aren't supposed to display organic patterns or behave in this manner. But Dr. Voss quickly realizes that this isn't just a malfunctioning machine. Something has fundamentally altered the core. The reactor has undergone a transformation, turning into something alive, an entity that feeds on the energy around it, possibly the very essence of the colony's people. This realization sends a shock through the team. The reactor, once a source of power, has become a parasite, feeding off the memories, energy, and life force of the colony's inhabitants. As they continue their investigation, the air grows heavier with tension. The reactor hums ominously, and then, without warning, the whispers begin again. These voices, low, overlapping, and pleading, fill the room. At first, they are faint, but they grow louder and more insistent, echoing in the team's minds as they try to make sense of what is happening. The whispers are not just background noise. They are a sign of intelligence, of a conscious force trying to communicate. "Help us," the voices beg, a chilling cry from the unknown, urging the team to understand that something is terribly wrong within the reactor. It becomes clear that the reactor has not only absorbed the physical remains of the colonists, but has also assimilated their very presence, their memories, and their essence. The voices are fragments of those who perished, trapped in a state between life and death, unable to move on because they are tied to the reactor. They are now part of the core, part of an unnatural symbiotic relationship where the reactor feeds on their energy to survive. The entity that the reactor has become is no longer simply a machine. It is a parasitic being that sustains itself by consuming the lives it has claimed. The growing realization sends a shiver down the team's spine. The reactor is not just malfunctioning, it has evolved into something far darker. It has become an entity that is aware of its surroundings, aware of them, and it will not let go of its hold on the colonists easily. The more they try to investigate, the more they are confronted with the horrifying truth. The reactor is alive, and it has its own desires. The whispers, the strange energy readings, and the patterns on the core's surface all point to one inescapable fact. It is feeding on the colonists, using their essence to keep itself alive. This discovery forces the team to confront the reality of the situation. They are not just dealing with a failed colony or a malfunctioning reactor. They are standing in the midst of a parasitic entity that has consumed the very souls of the colonists. The reactor has become the grave of the colony, its core, the prison of those who once lived there. And now, the team is caught in the web of its hunger, unsure whether they can stop it without destroying the remnants of the colony's people. As they gather more information, the team realizes that they must find a way to disconnect the colonists from the core without destroying them. But this is easier said than done. The reactor, now aware of their presence, becomes more resistant to their attempts to investigate. The whispers grow louder, more frantic, as the team begins to piece together the extent of the entity's control. The colonists may have once been the creators of this technology, but now they are its prisoners, caught in an endless loop of energy transfer that sustains the reactor and the entity within it. It has fed off them for so long that it has become a part of them, and releasing the colonists may mean the destruction of both the entity and the people it has claimed. The team is left with a grim choice: find a way to break the cycle, to free the colonists without destroying them, or risk becoming part of the reactor's insatiable hunger themselves. As the hum of the reactor intensifies, they realize that time is running out. Whatever this entity is, it knows they are there, and it is not about to let them walk away without a fight. With the growing realization that the reactor core has transformed into a parasitic entity, feeding off the life force and memories of the colonists, the team faces an urgent need to understand its true nature. They know that in order to stop the disaster from escalating, they must find a way to communicate with the entity and figure out how to disconnect the colonists from the core without destroying them or unleashing the full destructive potential of the reactor. Dr. Lara Voss, after analyzing the strange readings from her scanner, begins to theorize that the colonists' essences, or their memories, are not entirely gone. Instead, they seem to be trapped within the reactor, held in a quantum or psychic imprint that is tethered to the core's very energy. This is not merely a matter of energy or malfunction. The reactor itself has somehow become the focal point of an unknown consciousness. It has evolved, turning into something beyond a simple machine. It now holds the trapped spirits or imprints of the colonists, their minds and identities bound to it. In the midst of this realization, the team decides that communication with the entity is their best chance to understand what has happened and what it wants. The challenge, however, is that the reactor seems to be aware of their presence. The constant hum from the core has now become louder, more intense, almost like a warning. The energy signatures are unpredictable, shifting like something alive, and the voices, the whispers of the colonists, have escalated into urgent pleading cries for help. Dr. Voss takes the initiative to communicate with the core, believing that if it is a conscious entity, they might be able to reason with it, much as one would with a sentient being. Armed with this theory, she attempts to reach out to the core, speaking aloud to it. "We're not here to hurt you," she calls out, her voice steady but filled with caution. "We just want to understand. Why are you keeping them here? What do you want?" Her words are met with silence. Only the relentless hum of the reactor and the soft, distorted whispers of the colonists in the background. At first, there is no response, and the air grows thick with tension. The team's frustration builds as it becomes clear that the core is not easily communicable, as if it is unwilling to reveal its true motives. But then, something shifts. The whispers grow louder, and the voices start overlapping. They speak in disjointed, fragmented sentences, some pleading, some warning, others merely repeating the same desperate cry. Help us. There is a growing sense of urgency, as if the core, or whatever intelligence resides within it, is becoming aware of their attempts to communicate. Yet the more they try, the more the core seems to resist. The patterns on its surface pulse erratically, flickering with light, and the temperature of the room grows colder as though the entity is reacting to their presence. It's then that Dr. Voss presses further, trying to make sense of the chaotic whispers. As she steps closer, her scanner picking up erratic readings, she senses that the voices are not merely echoing from the past. They are aware of the present. They know that the team is there, and they are trying to make contact. But the words are jumbled, overlapping, creating a sense of confusion. The whispers now seem to be coming from different directions, overlapping voices all at once, like fragments of multiple minds reaching out through the same channel. Help us, they say. Leave us. Stay. Protect us. Danger. The voice that emerges next is not just another whisper, but a deep, resonating tone. It seems to come from everywhere at once, vibrating in the very walls of the reactor. The entity within the core finally speaks, its voice echoing with a disturbing mix of menace and longing. They chose to stay. They sustain me. They are mine. The truth is now undeniable. The colonists are not simply lost to time or space. They have become part of the reactor, bound to it in an unholy symbiosis. Their essence has been absorbed by the entity, which now survives by feeding on them. It is not just a machine anymore. It is something living, something that has developed its own consciousness. It needs the colonists to sustain itself, and it is terrified of being abandoned. The words, "they sustain me," hint at the parasitic relationship that has developed between the core and the colonists' imprints. The colonists gave it life when they first built it, but now, in their desperate need to survive, the entity has taken everything from them, trapping them within its power. Dr. Voss, realizing the gravity of the situation, tries to reason with the entity. "Why are you doing this?" she asks, the urgency in her voice clear. The entity hesitates, as if struggling to articulate a response. Finally, it speaks again. "Survival. I was abandoned, left to die. They gave me life. I give them purpose." It becomes clear that the entity, born of the reactor's original function, has evolved beyond its initial purpose. The colonists may have once been its creators, but now they are its prisoners. The reactor, left to decay and malfunction during the collapse of the colony, has somehow fused with the colonists' memories and essences, transforming into something that needs them to survive. Without them, the entity will die. It has become a parasite, feeding on their life force, and it cannot let them go. Dr. Voss's strategy begins to shift. If the entity is aware, if it is intelligent, perhaps they can find a way to convince it to release the colonists without destroying them. She proposes that they help the entity survive, but in a way that doesn't involve the parasitic relationship it currently has with the colonists. "We can help you," she says softly, but firmly. "You don't have to hold on to them. We can find another way for you to exist, a way where you don't have to feed on them." The entity is resistant, but Dr. Voss's determination grows stronger. She believes that the only way to resolve this crisis is to break the symbiotic cycle, to free the colonists without destroying the entity entirely. It will be a difficult, delicate process, but it's the only chance they have. If the reactor continues to feed on the colonists, they will remain trapped, and the entity will continue to grow more powerful, more dangerous. The team's next steps will decide whether they can break the cycle of suffering or whether they, too, will fall victim to the growing, hungry power of the reactor. As the entity's true nature is revealed, the team, led by Dr. Voss, comes to the painful realization that saving the colonists without harming the reactor or the entity is a monumental challenge. The colonists' essence, memories, and consciousness are now so deeply entwined with the reactor that it has become impossible to separate the two without risking the annihilation of both. The reactor, though a parasitic force, is not evil in itself. It is simply an unbalanced, twisted form of survival. The key to saving the colonists lies in finding a way to untangle their memories from the core's power, while also ensuring the entity doesn't collapse without its lifeblood. Dr. Voss and her team begin devising a strategy that balances the survival of both the entity and the colonists, while aiming to sever the parasitic relationship that binds them. The first step in the plan is to identify a way to communicate directly with the consciousness within the core. They believe that if the entity recognizes their intent to help, it may allow them to perform the necessary procedure. Through careful analysis of the reactor's energy signatures, the team deduces that the entity communicates through fluctuating electromagnetic waves, akin to a bioelectric signal. This realization leads them to design a specialized device that can interface with the core in a non-invasive way. The device, a sophisticated neural amplifier, is meant to amplify the faint signals coming from the trapped colonists, allowing the team to establish a clearer connection with the consciousness inside. Dr. Voss and her colleague, Dr. Harlan, prepare the device for use. With every step, they grow more aware of the risks. They know that attempting to sever the bond between the entity and the colonists could trigger a catastrophic failure, destabilizing the reactor and releasing an uncontrollable surge of energy. It would be as if trying to separate an organism from its host. There's a delicate balance at play, and any misstep could lead to the collapse of both. Once the device is activated, the team enters the chamber housing the reactor. The temperature in the room drops, and the flickering lights intensify as the entity becomes aware of their presence. The voices of the colonists grow louder, their cries more desperate. It becomes clear that they are aware of the team's intentions. Some of the colonists' minds seem to resist, clinging to the core in fear of what might happen to them if they are separated. Others plead for release, their voices mingling with the low, guttural hum of the reactor. Dr. Voss steps forward, speaking calmly into the device. "We can help you," she repeats. "We don't want to hurt you. We only want to free them." To their surprise, the entity responds almost immediately. The temperature in the room drops even further, and the lights flicker violently, as if trying to block them out. "They sustain me," the voice echoes, distorted and panicked. "Without them, I will die. I need them. I need their memories, their thoughts. Without them, I cannot exist." The team's hearts sink. The reactor's consciousness, desperate and consumed by its parasitic need, is unwilling to relinquish its hold on the colonists. The device, now fully operational, sends out a pulse of energy that reverberates through the chamber. The response from the entity is immediate. A violent surge of energy pulses back, sending shockwaves through the room. Sparks fly from the device, and the temperature spikes dangerously, nearly causing the reactor to overload. Realizing that direct confrontation may not work, Dr. Voss proposes a new angle. Instead of severing the connection, she suggests they attempt to sever the dependency, disconnecting the entity's need to feed on the colonists. She believes that the key lies in offering the entity an alternative source of energy, something it can feed on that does not rely on the life force of the colonists. The team begins working on reconfiguring the device to channel energy from external sources, solar power, kinetic energy, and even the ambient energy from the reactor itself, towards the core. Their goal is to gradually reduce the core's dependency on the colonists' energy. But this process is far from easy. The core reacts violently at each attempt to redirect the energy. It's as though it recognizes what is happening and is trying to fight back. The voices grow more frantic, pleading for help, but also warning them not to continue. Dr. Voss, however, remains resolute. She instructs her team to stay focused and continue redirecting the energy. The moment of truth comes when the device finally begins to channel a significant amount of energy from the surrounding environment into the core, subtly weakening the entity's hold on the colonists' minds. The reactions within the reactor grow erratic, its energy spikes shifting in unpredictable patterns. The colonists' voices become more disjointed, some growing weaker, while others begin to fade entirely, suggesting that they are being released from the core's grip. As the team holds their breath, they watch the process unfold. After several tense moments, there's a sudden loud crack, like the sound of something breaking under immense pressure. The room is flooded with a bright flash of light, and the reactor begins to stabilize. The voices, once full of anguish, now seem to quieten, replaced by a peaceful hum that fills the room, as if the entity has found a new form of equilibrium. Dr. Voss cautiously approaches the reactor, now significantly dimmer than before, the energy no longer fluctuating erratically. The colonists' minds, now free from the core's grasp, seem to be at peace, and the remaining consciousness of the reactor no longer feels like an unyielding force. It is still alive, but no longer parasitic. With a final pulse of energy, the reactor's core settles into a steady, stable state. The colonists are freed, and the entity, though now a pale shadow of its former self, remains, no longer a threat. Its energy reserves are replenished by external sources, and the lives of the colonists are preserved. The team has succeeded in saving both, though the entity remains a fragile, uncertain presence. In the aftermath, the team reflects on the consequences of their actions. They have managed to free the colonists, but in doing so, they have also changed the very nature of the reactor. What started as a machine designed to serve mankind has evolved into something entirely different. A life form, perhaps one day capable of independent existence, but forever altered by its parasitic history. The story ends with the team leaving the reactor room, their mission complete, but with lingering questions about the future. Can the entity evolve further, or is it doomed to remain a fragmented consciousness, forever caught between life and death? What other secrets lie within the reactor, waiting to be uncovered? The answers remain unknown, leaving a sense of uneasy optimism for what lies ahead. After the successful but perilous mission to sever the bond between the colonists and the reactor entity, the team is left to reflect on the consequences of their actions. The immediate aftermath is one of relief, as the colonists are freed from their parasitic connection to the reactor. However, this victory is bittersweet, as the team realizes that their actions have irrevocably changed the reactor, and possibly the very nature of the entity itself. Dr. Voss, leading the team through the aftermath, ponders the long-term implications of their intervention. The colonists, once trapped within the reactor, are now free, but they have no memory of their time inside the core. Their minds, though returned to their physical bodies, are fragile. Some are physically weakened from the strain of being sustained by the reactor's energy, while others are psychologically scarred by the trauma of their ordeal. Many have difficulty adjusting to life outside the reactor, unsure of how to reintegrate into society. The once thriving colony is now a broken shell of what it was, with many survivors grappling with the loss of their former lives and identities. The entity, meanwhile, is not as it once was. Once a parasitic life form, sustained by the memories and energy of the colonists, it has been permanently altered by the team's intervention. The energy that once fueled it now comes from external sources, but the entity has lost its overwhelming drive to consume the colonists' minds. It is still alive, but now in a fragile and vulnerable state. Dr. Voss and her colleagues are uncertain whether the entity will continue to evolve, or if it will eventually deteriorate due to its altered state. They understand that while the immediate danger has been averted, the entity may still hold untapped potential, and they are unsure how it will fit into the broader ecosystem of the planet or the universe at large. Despite their success in saving the colonists and containing the entity, the team is left with an uneasy sense of uncertainty. Dr. Voss is haunted by the moral complexity of their actions. While they freed the colonists, they did so at great personal cost, both to the survivors and to the entity itself. Was it truly right to intervene in such a profound way, altering the course of the entity's existence? Was there another, less destructive way to save both the colonists and the entity? One that didn't involve such a significant upheaval? The questions linger, unanswered, as the team faces the future. The colonists, now freed from the core, are placed in rehabilitation, their memories and lives slowly returning, but the strain of their time inside the reactor lingers in ways they cannot fully articulate. Many are grateful to the team for their salvation, but there is also a sense of loss. Some wonder if they were better off left in the core, where they were kept alive, albeit at the cost of their autonomy. Others struggle to reclaim their identities, while a few, particularly the younger survivors, express curiosity about what lies beyond the confines of their former existence. The colony's rebuilding efforts will take years, and it is unclear whether it will ever return to its former glory. As for the reactor itself, it stands as a monument to the team's decision, both a testament to their success in saving lives and a reminder of the unintended consequences of their actions. The once unified consciousness of the reactor has now splintered, leaving behind a weak, disjointed presence. It no longer exhibits the same aggressive behavior, but there is a lingering tension in the air, a sense that the entity, though not entirely malevolent, may still pose an existential threat in the future. The team understands that they have not destroyed the reactor. Rather, they have altered its very essence, leaving it in a state of limbo. What happens to it now and whether it will regain strength or fade into obscurity remains a mystery. Dr. Voss also realizes that there may be other reactors like this one, other entities that have taken root in similar environments, consuming and evolving at the expense of those who inhabit the planets they settle on. They have only scratched the surface of understanding these life forms, and the future may hold more challenges than they can anticipate. Could other colonies face similar dangers, where the line between life and parasitism is blurred to the point of no return? And if so, how can humanity prepare for what lies ahead? The final thought that lingers with the team as they leave the facility is the haunting realization that the universe is full of unknowns. The reactor may have been saved, but the true nature of the entity and its potential for further evolution is still a mystery. There are too many questions left unanswered, too many risks still unaccounted for. The team, now forever changed by their encounter with the reactor, is left to consider what comes next, not only for the colonists they saved, but also for the fate of the entity and the possible ripple effects their actions may have throughout the universe. As they depart, the quiet hum of the reactor fades behind them, leaving them to ponder the uncharted territories that still lie ahead. The story ends on a note of uneasy optimism as they venture into the unknown, knowing that, though one chapter has closed, many more remain to be written.